Hello everyone and welcome back. We're going to be finishing off everything non-keyboard related in this episode. It might actually be a pretty quick one. I added this guy between now and the last episode, but this is just these screws that go on the top of here. Then we have this sort of spinny piece on the front, this connection piece in the middle, and this back section. All of these are really quick. I wouldn't be surprised if we get this done in under an hour. So yeah, let's go ahead and just get started. So the first thing is to add screws into here. When we started this off at the very beginning, some of these pieces, like for example, these screws are way too oversimplified. I thought we'd do more work in Zbrush, but as I realized how complex this thing really is, I started just sort of doing it in Maya to save time. So we're gonna have to continue to do that with this being one of those parts. Just these screws here. Let's find some appropriate places to puncture them. We've done this a million times, so it's nothing new. Just sort of going ahead and getting a cylinder into place. And of course, we have to center this out. So shift right click on a face and we can poke face. Spin a little bit since I've done that. And then holding V, vertex snap in that guy in the middle. And we can just focus on rescaling this now. Hopefully you guys are doing pretty good. It is currently New Year's Eve, so people are feeling a little bit festive right now. Which is also pretty good that this is a quick episode. For such a day like today, don't want to be doing this all night or anything like that. I'm just trying to think realistically where these are going to be screwed down onto, but like on this side it makes sense, on this side not so much. But once again, like I said, people aren't really going to be looking through this, and who knows, we might find something that will be bolted into that later on. So I'm going to isolate these. I don't want the screw penetrating, so I'm just going to push it in and make sure it doesn't go all the way through. Go ahead and make it a bit wider so it's a bit more noticeable. And then of course I can get rid of these unneeded edges. Let's go ahead and duplicate this and put it somewhere appropriate on the back, like so. It's not poking through, which is good. In fact, I might actually make it a bit wider. Like so, and since this is actually connected to that side, we might as well do it all in one big boolean. So I'm going to go mesh combine. We can go ahead and duplicate this and move it over here. Once again, poke face, vertex snap. Delete these guys. I guess the size of these are different, so I might actually change this up to where I move this back a little bit to compensate for the scale difference. We can still combine these though. Might as well get it all done in one boolean. Let's freeze transform, delete history on these guys, and do our normal operation here. Good old difference. Delete history and base objects. And now we can put screws in here. Let's see if we can find one that we can borrow. Yeah, this guy seems to be good for the job. So just a control D and duplicating that guy over. Let's rotate him 90 degrees. And we can even just snap him right in the middle. Scale it down, move it up a bit. Nice. Duplicate that guy over. Once again, snap to the middle and rotate so it's a bit more random. And bring these guys over here. Interesting, it seems like this didn't quite fill in properly. Let me isolate this so I can see what's going on. Yeah, so we can just manually extrude this if this happens to you. Just select the edge loops by double clicking on it, hold shift and drag to extrude down, and then we can just fill a hole on that. Weird, but it is what it is. So let's get this guy into place. Once again, just snapping the vertice to the middle one and rotating a little bit. And let's get the final one in place here. Perfect. So now we can go ahead and take that off of our list and move on to this guy. This one doesn't look too complicated. I do like it though because it starts to fill up the front a little bit. I'm going to try and find a reference like this that shows us its proper positioning. It doesn't seem like it's going too far down or anything like that, so roughly in this area. Let's see how this is made. So it's a cylinder, or like a ring that has a cylinder puncturing through it, a rounded shape with an extrusion on each end that goes down and curves back around into itself with these sort of finger, well, I guess they're just the same buttons from here placed on top, which is actually good news because that means we can just make these and we're already done the buttons down here. So we're thinking ahead a little bit. Let's start at the back and move things forward. So I'm going to be starting with this sort of longer piece. We're going to be creating a cylinder. And for this guy, I obviously want to sort of offset it a little bit to have a bit of imperfection by rotating it. But while we're making it, we're going to keep it straight. We can always rotate it after. That way, it's just far, far easier to work with. The default 20 segments on a cylinder should be more than enough for this. And let's just try and get the scale on this right. Super thin. Very coin-like. It's going over the leg, which is cool. I'm just going to focus on getting the scale relative to each of the other components, and then we can scale it based on the remaining typewriter later on, in case things are a little bit off, but I'm still going to try, and this seems more or less like the right size. From here, can just extrude out the sides. How about we delete half, select these four, and just shift drag out. Let's do a little bit of cleanup on this just to make it a lot easier for us to work with. I'm going to drag these vertices with vertex snap off to the side so that we can do it at the end as well. It's just a lot less complicated to work with. Okay, much cleaner. Let's go ahead and merge those verts. I'm tempted. I'm going to try deleting these two and pull this in, because it doesn't seem like it's a perfect circle. It's more of like a gradual transition, like so. Still want to bevel it a little bit. Just don't want it being perfectly circular. And then of course we can drag these verts right back to the middle. Merge them up. I kind of want to shrink this down too. Pull it out a little bit more. And then, yeah, it extrudes out and then curves in. Kind of an interesting shape. Let's get the extrusion out first. So I'm just extruding out, and then that gives us a new face where we can extrude that from. Okay, I might want to make this a bit longer though. And kind of want to squash it down. In general, I feel like this part's too thick, so I'm going to shrink this and then pull it in a bit. That should be fine. We got to work on curving this in now, so I might need to pull this out a bit more. What would be the easiest way to do that? Let's try adding an edge loop here, and then cutting. Actually, we won't cut yet. I think we did something similar to this before, so by adding this edge loop, I can now hit Control E, which will add an extrusion, but without moving, I'm just going to hit W, and we can then move our pivot by pressing D and snapping it to the corner. We can move our pivot there and rotate this. Something along those lines, which we can now add a cut to here, and we can start stitching things together. This is kind of a janky way of doing it. I believe Maya has a tool called the wedge tool, which is specifically for these situations, but I have to look into that a bit more. I'm not totally sure on that. But essentially now I'm just going to add a cut to the middle, stitch this up, and just, yeah, sort of pull it out a little bit to almost like a square shape, but then we can bevel that, which will force it to be rounded out and mimic that shape there. Let's go ahead and snap that guy back to the middle. Clean everything up a little bit. I'm going to push this in. It's a little thick for my liking. Same with this back side. And while we're back here, we might as well close off some of these unneeded vertices. There's quite a few on this guy, I know. I guess there's these ones too. Push that one in as well, and that should be it. Nice. Cool. So we can merge those. We can thin this out. Oh, we didn't merge this. That could be a problem. Same here. And here. Okay, now we can thin this out. Okay, so that's that. Now we have this sort of round button shape that's resting on top. Which means that I guess this isn't going to be like super pressed against it, which is kind of nice. Let's thicken this out a bit. I guess I can't really make up my mind on this. I think it does need to be a bit thicker. This is one of those times where it's really important to sort of pull the camera out and realize how small the thing I'm working on is. But more like that. Yeah, that works. Right, this button thing should be pretty straightforward enough. Create polygon primitive cylinder. Scale it down and smush it a little bit. I'm just going to snap it to this middle point, which will have it pretty centered for us. Then we can move our pivot to the bottom, snap it down. It seems to be a decent amount bigger, as if it's overlapping on both sides. Or, yeah, it definitely is going over like that. Okay. Scale it down. And what I'm going to do is select all the faces in the middle with a grow selection, shift period, and then deselect these guys, and we can sort of get this groove shape by extruding in like so, extruding down. But the problem with this is going to be, I'm going to want this, even though we'll most likely be baking this down, I'm going to want this to be a different color, so I want it to have a different material ID, and I also don't want the roundness of this silver and the black to sort of bleed into one another. So what I'm going to do is have a secondary cylinder sort of resting in the middle. So in order to do that, I'm going to select this ring, use the smart duplicate face. We'll make a extrusion. Right, those are all going to be black, so we'll have to reverse those. So yeah, and I'm just going to rest this inside. So this way we can give it a different color, a different material ID, but mostly I just want these to be separate. I don't want these to sort of mush into one shape when we put them into Zbrush. So it's nice to have that kind of control. So I'm going to leave that be, just so we know it's something different though. It's always handy to give it a different color, in this case red. Yeah, and that seems to be that. I'm still going to hit mesh combine. The reason I'm doing this is just so I can duplicate it quickly, but since it's two separate pieces, we can just very easily go to mesh separate and it'll know it's two different things. But for the time being, combine until it's time to bring it into ZBrush, and we'll make our adjustments then. So let's go ahead and duplicate everything over to the other side. Let's mirror this over X. So where we can start to see we might have a little bit of work to do. And then we can duplicate this, and I'm just going to snap it here. Right, so let's see, how can we fix this? I'm just selecting these edges here so I can scale them all uniformly. Oh, looks like I have to merge everything. And let's select those edges again. I'm going to select these guys as well and see if it's a bit better to drag them out. Go for a bit of a smoother transition. It might have been worth toying with this stuff a little bit more before I mirrored it, but this is more or less the shape I'm going for. Let's just pinch this part down. Nice. I feel like the length is a bit much though. I'm gonna just squish this a little, which seems to be fine. I know it kind of messes with the dimensions, but it seems to be so minimal it's okay. I'm gonna delete that because I kind of want to maybe move this forward so it's more centered and shrink it. It just seemed a little bit too big. This is starting to be a bit more accurate. Duplicate that and put it here. And now I feel like it's slightly too small. Make it a bit taller maybe from the bottom. I think what's off is this should be lower. Yeah, I think the scale was just a little out of whack. And then the whole thing is going to be scaled up. It seems like it seems a little bit tiny on here, but we'll be doing that after we get everything set up and put into place. But yeah, it also just seems like these are a bit tiny for my likings. Let's just center the pivot on that and snap it down. And we'll start working on that middle part. So from what I can tell, there's a ring, there's a cutout in the middle, something sticking through that's obviously attached to this main guy, and then a ring again. So let's just start by cutting a hole in this, and then everything else should be incredibly simple from there. We can use these actually. We already have cylinders here, so we might as well take advantage of them. Let's see, we can use this, center the pivot, and snap that to the middle. This is another one of those cases where the hole is going to be completely baked down. That's why I'm not worried about these sort of amount of edges here being the same as the amount of edges here. Like, this is sloppy geo, but I'm totally fine with that. I'm going to duplicate this so we have a cylinder again for later. But yeah, let's go ahead and do our Boolean. Let's freeze transforms and history and everything. Click, shift click, new Boolean operation. Delete history and base objects. Oh, I guess it takes on the color of what you cut it with. Interesting. Either way, we can totally work with that. Let's line this guy back up. Is this already perfect? Okay, that's nice and centered. What I'm going to be doing with this is making this first ring that we can see sort of in the back. So I'm going to move the pivot to the back so we can snap it directly on the surface. And let's scale this like so. So it's mostly embodying the whole circumference. And we can cut in. Take out a chunk. Wow, that lined up almost perfectly. Sweet. And bridge this. Of course, it's a little bit wonky. We'll do our trick where we bridge one of these, deselect these guys, and bridge it again. So we have this ring. We have to stick something through now and then put another ring in front and we should be done. I am thinking that I kind of want to make this hole smaller though. And the bad geo is making it hard to select the whole ring. Let's make it like so. We'll slide a cylinder through there to sort of connect it to, and attach another ring sort of at the end here. And that'll be this guy complete. I kind of want to massage these guys out though a little bit more. Okay. Let's get another cylinder. Rotate this guy 90 degrees. Line it all up properly. I don't think it's going to be easy to tell what's going on if everything's the same color, so I'm going to put this one back to gray. Make this one longer. It only has to be as long as the back of this because we're going to be resting it against the surface. So stick it out like that. And then this might even be too far out. It does kind of make me want to thicken this guy up a little bit. And then this seems to be rounded, so I'm going to go ahead and do something along those lines. Can hit it all with a auto smooth. Duplicate this. Snap it forward. Scale it down like seems to be like so. I guess it kind of is a lot bigger in the middle actually. Let me scale this appropriately and then have everything match it. The hole is definitely a bit too small. Okay, and this one. Not that you'll ever really see this. I just want to keep it consistent. And that's that. So what I'm going to be doing for this, just to make sure we get it all in position, is we can Control G, get it in a group, center pivot, put our gizmo at the back so we can snap it. And let's get the scale of this correctly. So position-wise, it's pretty high up. It's definitely bigger. Along these lines. Maybe even larger, like so. And since it's in a group, this is like super non-destructible. We can just get rid of the group. I'll make it about that big. And then we can just sort of rotate it all as one. Nice. And then I guess there would probably be a hole here, but like the chances of someone seeing back there is so minimal. I'm just going to do that in Zbrush directly, sort of add a little crack or crevice or something for it to slide into, because it's going to be so tiny. It's so minimal. I guess, yeah, that'll be fine when it's smoothed out. It's just something about it being so geometrical and long is throwing me off, but it'll be fine. Once we put it into Zbrush, so that is done. We have just two things left, which is pretty nice. This sort of hook piece. goes from the back of here to this. I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of this is. I was trying to think of like some sort of reason why you'd want this here. In a lot of the references, it's not even there at all. But I think it's something to add. It was in the majority of references. It's a detail for sure, like a small piece, but it seems to be attached to this sort of little metal bar that's hooked on. This seems to just be floating, so it's something you can raise up and drop down. But regardless, it should be a rather quick addition. We'll just sort of tack it on here. I suppose I should probably keep this in sight. Let's start with the part that's like sort of chassised on. Seems pretty simple. I'm going to start with a cube. It's already centered, which is really nice. I'm just making this like 2 connection pieces. We don't have this like best reference on this, but this is like as good as it's gonna get realistically. It's such a tiny, tiny, minute piece. I want to give this a bit of space because I know this is going to curve quite a bit once we start smoothing things out. Snap that so it's level. Bring this in a little bit. Maybe I'm making this a bit too small. Should be more like that. Can exaggerate the proportions on it a little bit or it'll never be seen. Let's take this face and snap it right to the outside. And it's not too easy to tell what's going on, but I'm envisioning it being a sort of like rounded piece that's has a piece of metal going through it. Like so. So we have 1 and 2. 1 and 2. And then it looks like some sort of screw is going through it, so which means we're going to have to cut a hole through it. Let's go ahead and combine these guys just for convenience. As far as scale goes, it's definitely tiny. Let's go ahead and consider scaling this up a little bit. And it's hard to imagine that this is going all the way across from here to here. Some of them had a piece of metal that looked very similar going horizontally. So let's go look through this again and make sure I'm getting this correctly. Yeah, it's definitely going across. Maybe I've just sort of imagined it to be much smaller than it is. Maybe if I thicken this up a little bit, spread it out. Does that make enough sense for it to go across? Yeah. I mean, distance-wise, it's not that outrageous to think that these two sizes are similar. I'm gonna go ahead with it. I'm gonna go through with that. And at the end of the day, as long as we have the shape, we can repurpose it if it's a bit large. Let's go ahead and puncture this guy. Freeze, transforms, and all of that. I'm going to spawn a cylinder directly on top, which we can scale down. Okay, freeze everything, delete history on everything. Let's go for that bool. Clean up, delete history and base objects. Very nice, very nice. So auto smooth that. I'm going to use some of these screws again. It seems like there's something sticking out of the top and the bottom. It looks very similar to maybe one of these guys. Of course, you could just put a normal screw that's sort of capping it over. I'm going to spawn this guy in, but I immediately regret it because of the weird angle it's on. Let's try this face. And that's a bit better. I'm going to go ahead and combine this into one piece. Center it out a little bit. For this guy, I'm just going to have him maybe not. This might be a bit too much to bake down, so I'm just going to have these two pieces. Like so. Just because I want to use the least amount of geometry possible, and if I'm baking this down, another cylinder is going to be I'm going to have to extrude it up again, and it's so not worth it on something this tiny. So let's put one at the bottom. Nice, and we can put a cylinder in the middle, and then we can sort of connect this piece over, and that should definitely do the trick. Let's summon a cylinder. Definitely a dramatic way of calling it. Snap it so it's perfect. Nice, we got our little connector piece. We can now attach this metal contraption, whatever it is, and continue along. Let's go ahead and save. I don't think we've saved so far, and it has been a decent amount of time so far. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and make this little metal piece now. I think for me, I'm just going to sort of extrude a square out to sort of mimic this shape. And then have it weave through here. It's a very strange contraption, whatever it is. Yeah, let's get a cube in here. Line it up with the end. It seems to come out a little bit. Then it has this sort of like hump shape. So just doing a series of extrudes, nothing new. It seems it doesn't go, it doesn't like even out to where it started. It starts a bit higher, so I'm gonna have to accommodate for that. So it's more like this before it plateaus out. Obviously these are all over the place. I'm gonna try a relax tool. If I'm not mistaken, we tried it in the last one. It wasn't too useful. Yeah. I guess this isn't the best spot for it because I wanted to keep these borders, which, I mean, I guess there's options for it. Let me try something like this. Interesting. So let's keep in the borders here. I guess if I go through them one by one, it'll... But that one doesn't for some reason. It's very strange. Let's just undo those. Like, I know these are going to be smoothed out very properly when we bring it into Zbrush, which is nice. But I still kind of like it being a little bit more proper than that. So let's massage it out a little bit, even if we do have to do it manually. Okay. I think this should also be a decent deal thinner, which means that this hole should be thinner, which means everything should be thinner. So let's shrink that down. Well, actually, we should start with this and then sort of build everything around it. So that's about the thickness we want for that. Okay, that's good. Okay, that all seems to be in order. But yeah, this has it going all the way out here, which is clearly way further than that. I suppose I could dramatically increase the size of this hoop, which is probably the wisest way to go about this. If I make this hoop larger, the amount of straightness at the very end is going to be dramatically reduced. So let's make this go quite a bit larger. So yeah, it's getting there, but still have to make it a bit bigger than that. I'm gonna go ahead and cap this just because it's a little annoying working with one that's open. Something more akin to that, even though I still do wish this started a bit later, so I'm gonna play with this shape a bit more. So then it loops, comes back, or I guess we could do this one. I kind of like, well, first of all, I'm going to smooth this out. Okay, let's smooth this out. Yeah, I want to curve this up and bring it back around. It gives it an excuse to sort of go on a little bit longer and maybe finally get to the end here. Didn't mean to add a keyframe there. We're definitely not animating this thing. I did it again. I keep hitting S instead of E, which for those of you who don't know, S is how you set a keyframe, which is just a whole other can of worms that we're not getting into. Okay, get that back up, give it a little bit of space, extrude it to about here. It seems to dip down and up again, but before the curve. Seems to be more gradual. And then sort of steeply back down. And then, yeah, we're gonna obviously have to massage all this out. I'm just gonna have this come to like right here. Yeah, and let's fix this. Rotate some of these guys to get their thickness back. Pull this in so it's a bit steeper. Pull this back. Even bevel some parts like that. Just softening it out in general. Something more akin to that. And that's kind of how it seems to me. It's not really attached to anything. Of course, all of this could be dramatically smoothed out. We'll leave it as it is for now. Zbrush should be able to smooth this out. If not, we can add additional edges to it. And then sort of resend it back over. But that's that part done. I'm going to give it a different color. Or maybe I should give these guys a different color so we don't forget about them. Green. And red. Cool. Nice, which only leaves one more piece. The back piece. This seems to be the easiest one as well. There's just a decent amount of shapes going on, but all of them seem incredibly simplistic. I'm just gonna have a sip of tea really quick. So let's go ahead and tackle that. All right, the first thing I want to do is add this horizontal bar. It seems pretty simple. The only things to keep in mind is it's sort of shaved off and flat here. There's a screw on that end. This end sort of tapers off. But that's about it. Pretty simple. Let's get this guy out of here. Oh, and there's also a dip at the top. Create polygon primitive cylinder. It's really easy when you get to this stage, and you can probably tell with me to get a little bit tired with what you're working on. I know definitely with these past few parts of the tutorial, like I've kind of run out of a lot of new things to say. Like I could just regurgitate the same information over and over again, but like you guys don't need to hear that. So you definitely hit sort of a point where you're just like, okay, I want to get to the next phase. And that's probably where I'm at right now. I want to bring this into Zbrush. I want to start sculpting and polishing and seeing how pretty this thing is going to look when it's actually done. But it's like, that's the motivation. I have my reference on the other screen just because of the size of it. So hopefully you guys trust that I'm getting this correct. Like this bar. This seems to be about the length. I kind of want to get this boolean in first, but I think it'd be wiser to take care of this left side. It's hard to tell exactly what's going on. It might be like these are screw lines, but it might just soften out and plug in somewhere. That's how I'm more interpreting it. It might be screwed in, but that's up for debate. So how I'm going to handle this is I'm going to take this side. I'm going to, it seems like it softens out a lot at the end, so I want to soften it out with a bevel. And then take these middle ones and extrude them out. Trying to get this shape here. And then it comes back again to a proper cylinder, but I think it's like plugging into something. So we'll make a separate piece for that right now. We'll do that by using our pal, the smart duplicate face. Where now we have a second cylinder. It's going to fill this hole. Actually, maybe I'm not going to do that. Maybe I'm going to select everything but the ring and delete them. So I can extrude in. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make a pipe shape that this can sort of slot into. And then of course we're going to have to bridge this over. And this should slot into it perfectly. Yep. That's at least how I'm interpreting what's going on here. It softens, turns into a smaller piece, sticking into something. Let's do that. Rest this against here, select these vertices. We can just plug them in. So that's that side taken care of. On this side, we have this shaved off bit and a screw. Shaved off bit. I think we can get with a capsule shape, creating a polygon primitive cylinder. Let's just manually make it. I only want it to be a capsule on one side. So I'm going to select these edges and hit B, Control B, soften it out to a capsule. And I'm doing that because I want this to sort of be soft. I want this to be a hard cutoff, and we can achieve that with this piece on this side. So let's isolate these two and kind of set this up. I think this is going to work. I hope this is going to work, because I can cut in, yeah, and this will be a rounded transition while this will be a harsh cutoff. Okay, let's snap this to the middle. I think this has to be a lot longer and a lot thinner, though, to sort of match the shape of what we're cutting out with. Because I don't want it to be, it doesn't look like it's cutting in too much. But let's give it a shot. Let's freeze, transform, delete history, and take a stab at it with our Boolean. Yeah, okay, we're good. We're getting a rounded shape here, a harsh cutoff on the other end. I'm gonna play with this a little bit though, because I'm trying to match this shape, right? So I think I have to stretch it out. Something similar to that. This seems to be much softer though, so I might even stretch it more. And yeah, that should do the trick. Give it enough space on the end for a screw. Clean up, delete history and base objects. Merge all our vertices. And freeze, transform, delete history. Nice, that should be that. If we turn off wireframe, we're getting the exact same sort of feel. It'll be smoothed out a lot more once we're in Zbrush, so it'll look even better. Which means for this to be finished, all we have to do is add a Boolean in here, and a Boolean in here at the top. Just making sure that was part of the bar. Okay, let's start with the easy one, which will be for this screw. Okay, we're almost done. I want to hurry this one up. There's a couple things I got to do after this. So let's go. Create polygon primitives. Cylinder. Snap that guy to the middle. Seems kind of like a smaller screw, so I'm not going to make it any bigger than this. Freeze the transforms and delete history on those guys. New bool. Delete history and base objects, and we're cooking. Nice. Plop one of our screws in here. Give it a rotation. And then we just got to cut. And we're then moving on to this guy. And that one should be pretty quick. So we're pretty much, yeah, we're there. I need to stop distracting myself. We're getting there. Okay, let's keep going. This one's going to be easy. It's just a cylinder cutting out from the top. Gonna rotate 90 degrees. And just mimic the size of it. It's not overly big or anything like that. Seems like maybe cutting out that much. Yeah, let's give it a shot. do our Boolean. It's not even puncturing. I should probably push that through. Might even be a bit too deep. I want it to be wide but shallow. So sort of adjusting as we go. Can even widen it like this. And yeah, let's go with that. Delete history and base objects. Freeze transform, delete history. Let's go for an auto smooth on that. Nice. Cool. And if we're ever unhappy with that, or ever want to make it smoother, we can just chop, stitch it back together, and do another Boolean, right? So it's not like it's permanently set like that or anything. All that's left to do is this. I'm thinking I might call it there right now. Yeah, I think I need a bit of a break right now. But that should honestly take no time at all getting this little shape in here. So we'll get this little shape in at the start of the next part, and I'll set aside some time to really think about how we're going to tackle the keyboard. We're definitely moving into the next phase, so that's awesome. Sorry I didn't get to really wrap this all up right now, but yeah, I definitely got to go. It's New Year's Eve, man. I'll see you guys in the next part, and thank you for watching. See ya.